All right, go ahead and get started, Worshipful Brother. Introduce yourself and tell us what we're learning about today.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks so much, first of all, for having me there, Brother Michael. I do appreciate how you are making um, Masonic education a focal point of discussion for the evening and such. I've always believed that Masonic education is one of the pillars of our craft. I mean, that's kind of why a lot of brethren end up joining Freemasonry in the first place, to learn more, right? To improve themselves and that sort of thing. So, my name is Burx Norrod. I've been a Mason since 2012. I first started off when I lived in the DC area, Northern Virginia, and uh, initiated, passed, and raised there at Herndon Lodge number 264 in Virginia. Shortly thereafterward, in 2013, I joined a Scottish Rite, went through the reunion, and went through all the degrees, got my 32nd degree, and that sort of thing. And but the reason why I joined Freemasonry wasn't for anything more noble as what a lot of brothers are doing, right? So a lot of brethren out there are joining Freemasonry because maybe their fathers or grandfathers were Masons, or maybe they've come across someone that they've really emulated who was a Mason, and therefore they became a Mason themselves. So a lot of different reasons for joining. I myself joined a craft because I was just curious. You know what I mean? I was living in a DC area. I used to see these huge Masonic square and compasses, and I decided, well, in order for me to figure out more about what this was, I had to actually knock on a door and join the craft myself. And so that's what I did. Went to the first degree. I didn't die. So I did the next one, and of course, became a master mason. And so it's been a really fantastic journey for me. It's been one of a lot of self improvement. Got exposed to a lot of different philosophies along the way that I've never would have thought of in the past. My background was nothing to do with philosophy. As a matter of fact, I was in the Marine Corps. I was in the grunts. So, when you're in the Marines, you're not really thinking about philosophical ideals as much. So this was a brand new experience for me. But in 2016, I moved to Idaho. I joined a lodge there. And 2021, 2019, I moved to New Mexico, joined a lodge where I'm at now in 2021, and am now the master of Sandoval Lodge number 76 in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. And a lot of folks are not familiar with Rio Rancho, but you might be familiar with the biggest city, which is Albuquerque. And if you think about those hot air balloons and that sort of thing, it's right in the heart of Albuquerque, and it's where I live. I live about 7 minutes away from where all the balloons take off and things. So that's a little bit about my background. But my presentation topic this evening is demons of the temple, and it's all about re-examining Solomon's builders. I'm one of those who tends to question everything. So, the craft is so interesting how it portrays Masonic education, because it really starts off with our ritual work. And unless you really start questioning and digging into what our ritual work is, it really becomes a bit difficult to try to dig into the allegories of what it is we're doing. And as you know, what Freemasonry teaches is, or the definition of Freemasonry is the fact that it's a system of morals that's veiled in allegories and illustrated by symbols. So if you think about that, allegories, very big in Masonry. So, so that's what we're going to get into here this evening. So, demons of the temple. The reason why this was very intriguing to me is when I started learning the ritual work of the Entered Apprentice lecture, or when I learned that the center allegory of Freemasonry itself, it is centered around King Solomon's temple. Like the entire allegory of Freemasonry is about King Solomon's temple. It's about building this temple using all the allegorical tools that we have, the square, the level, the compass, etc. And we're building this temple. And so as a brand new Mason, I wanted to know more about King Solomon's temple, because if that's our central allegory, I wanted to know more about what it was. And to my disappointment, I couldn't find anything that was really solid about King Solomon's temple itself, because one, archaeologists couldn't find where it was. There's no archaeological evidence of King Solomon's temple or that King Solomon himself ever existed. So after a while, I stopped chasing the literal aspects of the temple and just started focusing on the allegorical aspects of King Solomon's temple. And when I started doing that, everything else appeared to me more real. And Freemasonry, to me, became alive at that point. So I'm going to show you this one picture here, as you can see, if I minimize myself, demons of the temple. So we look at the master of the lodge. What does he hold in his hand, right? He's got a gavel in his hand. We're looking at a picture of King Solomon there on the right. What is he holding in his hand? Well, he's holding a scepter, as kings and potentates would have. And so when he has a scepter, it goes to show he's in control of the lodge, the control of the temple, right? Just as the master of the lodge is with his gavel, he's in control of it. And King Solomon, kings, potentates, what do they have on their heads? They have a crown, right? What does the master of the lodge have on his head? Hat, right? So it's our allegorical crown with our allegorical scepter that we have as a gavel. And it is a to show that we are masters of ourselves ultimately. So that's why I like this picture here. And so we're going to kind of go through a few things. So one of my biggest aspects here of Freemasonry is when I joined and I started to learn about what magic was, what ritual magic is. And I got into it because of a gentleman named Elias Ashmole. And if any of you know who Elias Ashmole he's the first recorded speculative Freemason. And so when I wanted to learn about ritual magic, I found that most of the brothers in the lodge, well, nobody could tell me what it was, what ritual magic was. So I ended up joining this group that focuses on ritual magic, called the Ordo Templi Orientis. And it's because it does have a Masonic background, so to speak, just because of the founders of it, along with it's kind of a spin-off from the Hermetic, the Golden Dawn. And so you can see there's some similarities, such as apron and that sort of thing. But the OTO, the Ordo Templi Orientis, is not Freemasonry. However, it does focus on magic. And that is exactly what I wanted to focus on to better learn Freemasonry. So I eventually became a master magician in the Ordo Templi Orientis, just as I became a master Mason. So that kind of gives you a little bit about my background as far as trying to understand King Solomon's temple and everything else. So the purpose of this presentation here is just a few things. And I know a lot of this can be pretty overwhelming for someone who has not really gone into the rabbit hole of the craft, the more esoteric side. I know it's really overwhelming. I know it in a big way. So, like, for example, last night at my lodge, we had 4 or 5 prospective members show up. And, we're having dinner. And it's really hard to condense, a couple of hundreds of years of, education and history and traditions over, hot dogs and hamburgers. So, like, where do you start? So basically what we're going to do here is kind of skim the surface of it all. And I'll provide you with some resources along the way if you decide to get into this a bit further. So the purpose of the presentation is really to encourage Masons to study your ritual work more deeply. It's really important. It's to you want to explore the esoteric lessons hidden within these degrees, because there's quite a bit of it. And ultimately, I do want to show you how the allegories, such as the demons who built King Solomon's temple, connect to Masonic teachings. Okay, so I look at Masonry as this: we have two pillars in the lodge, right? And of course, we're taught about what the pillars are and all those kinds of things. But I do look at the pillars of Masonry as being esoteric education and ritual work, because without it, we don't have a craft. Without it, we are a organization that's no different than the Elks, the Moose, the Eagles, so on and so forth. There are a ton of fantastic fraternities that exist, and unless we make education and ritual work our focus, we become exactly the same as any other fraternity that exists with no differentiation. So in this, we do understand and we do learn in Masonry that, we are divested of all these metallic substances, right? There's heard not the sound of axe, hammer, or any tool of iron. And so you hear it, but you wonder, where does it come from? Well, all this comes right from the Bible itself. And that's a great starting point for this. So in the book of Kings, we learn how the temple is being built without the sound of axe, hammer, or any tool of iron. And to flip ahead a little bit further here, one of the biggest things I've learned in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry is that one cannot have an understanding of Freemasonry unless one has a familiarity of the Kabbalah. And so if any of you are familiar or seen the Kabbalistic tree of life, you know that there is three supporting pillars in this tree, and I've equated it here to this. I mean, we've got esoteric education, ritual work, and we have the middle pillar, which I believe is the individual Mason. So there's a ton of lessons that can be found as long as we keep digging into our ritual work. So as a little bit of introduction into all of this is that we learned that King Solomon's temple itself is central to a biblical, mystical, and Masonic tradition. It comes from Jewish mysticism, Islamic lore, and esoteric writings that introduce spirits or demons as being the builders of the lodge, of the temple itself. And Freemasonry does inherit these allegories as symbols of your inner transformation. To explain further, we have the seal. There's a story that comes from maybe 100 AD. And the story is, according to lore, is that Solomon, say he built the temple. But it wasn't King Solomon himself that was supposed to build the temple. It was his father, King David. But David sinned. And so because David sinned, God said, well, you're not going to build my temple. I'm going to have your son build it when he becomes king. So there you have it. So Solomon becoming king, and he was tasked to build the temple. He prayed to God and he asked, how should I build a temple? How do I do this? Give me the wisdom for it. And apparently God gave him a ring and it became known as the Seal of Solomon. And as long as he wore the ring, he could communicate with animals and control demons. So again, this is all allegorical in nature. But the demons themselves, they were responsible for coring, transporting, and shaping the stones itself for the temple. And that's part of the allegory as far as why it was built without the sound of axe, hammer, or any tool of iron. And if you think about it, it's very specific. The Bible says iron, because iron is one of those substances that keeps the demons out. So if you ever seen these horseshoes, the good luck horseshoes that are posted outside of homes to ward off bad spirits, they're made of iron. And if you notice around cemeteries, they're not bordered with white picket fences. They're bordered with iron fences. And the idea is to keep out the bad spirits and to keep in the good ones. So very interesting things. So the Goetic tradition of magic is that there's something called the Ars Goetia, and it lists very specifically 72 demons that King Solomon himself bound into service. Each spirit had a specific skill, knowledge of secrets, and they symbolizes forces of nature. And the reason why 72 is extremely important is because there's also the aspect of the 72 names of God. So this, we can really go down a rabbit hole with this, but this kind of gives you a little bit of a surface on this as far as what the Goetic tradition is and these 72 demons. I won't go into them by name. However, these demons are, what are they? They're untamed passions, they're instincts, and they're your inner vices. Okay. King Solomon, he represents the master within. And he uses wisdom to command and channel these forces, these forces of nature, as what these demons represent. Now, when I say demons, I do mean it in a very allegorical term. I'm not talking about actual demons from hell here, but these demons are just to paint a picture. And the temple itself is about the perfected human spirit built through temple and mastery, because we are building our inner temples. So my lodge's theme for the year is building the inner temple. And that's all what we've been doing. We've been doing that through ritual work and Masonic esoteric education. Connections to Freemasonry is that Masonic teachings now, they do not literally reference demons, but the lodge is seen as a symbolic temple. And as Masons, we must subdue our passions. What are our passions? Right? It's the demons within. And it's about channeling them into productive labor. And King Solomon himself is revered as an archetypal master mason, as we're taught within degrees and such. And so it's about becoming a master of yourself, and it's about to control those demons. So the work of the craftsman, what are we doing in Masonry? It's just as the spirits shaped the stones, as Masons, we work to shape our rough ashlar into a perfect ashlar. Most lodges would have that rough stone, that rough ashlar in your lodge, and to the right of it would be that perfect ashlar. So that's what we're doing. We're using these allegorical tools to chip away at that rough ashlar to make it more perfect. And as an allegory, the inner demons they're not something that's being destroyed, but they're being disciplined and transformed into tools for progress. So that's what we want to do. Is we don't want to destroy, but we want to build, and we want to discipline what we have. If you ever hear the term, it's about chasing your demons or something like that, right? So it's about maintaining it. And as you can see in this one picture, once again, it's about taking control of those passions that we're taught to subdue. We're subduing our passions in Freemasonry. And this is what we do. If we can control our passions, what are we going to do? We're going to control those demons that are within. We're going to become masters of ourselves. So as symbolic lessons, what are we doing? We're confronting our demons, okay? Our ritual work, if you pay very close attention to all the words that we say, and the reason why I'm talking the way I am is because I'm not sure if we have prospective members sitting in the lodge or what degree everyone is. So there are no secrets here. It's just allegorical lessons. The ritual work reminds us that true mastery lies in balance, discipline, and ritual work. We see duality of everything in the craft. And the two philosophies that are taught in Masonry come mainly from Hermeticism and Rosicrucianism. So those two huge philosophical aspects form the lessons of the craft. So when we talk about, say, the sun, the moon, the worshipful master, all these they're all Hermetic lessons. And the temple itself is not a building itself, but it's the edifice of character and virtue. So again, brings me to the point of everything being allegorical in nature. So the presentation that I would usually do on this topic goes well over an hour. However, I did want to keep this fairly shorter, in that 15-minute, 15 to 20-minute tops time frame, to skim the surface of the allegories of King Solomon's temple. And in conclusion, the legend of the temple itself it's all about a myth, allegorical, and it's all about instruction. It teaches us that even basic instincts can be transformed into tools of light. And of course, we're builders, not of stone, but of ourselves. A few references to this is, well, one of the main references to a lot of Masonic teachings comes from the Bible itself. And in this one here, we go straight to First Kings, Second Chronicles, and Second Chronicles. There's another book called the Testament of Solomon, and it came about roughly in about the first century. And then even the Quran mentions Solomon and the jinn that served him. Some other texts that I reference is the Talmud, the Zohar, Book of Mysteries. And so you can go really deep into Masonic literature and all those kinds of things. So a lot of folks are familiar with maybe Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. He interprets Solomon's Temple allegorically in Masonic ritual. Some of you may know Manly P. Hall, Secret Teachings of All Ages. He does a very broad esoteric study, includes King Solomon's Temple and symbolic interpretations. There's the book called Esoterica by Albert Pike, and explores the deeper meanings of Masonic ritual and Solomon's allegories. So many different resources here, right? But what I do want to say is that there's a lot that's here that's in Freemasonry, a lot to be learned. And where do you start, right? So I always say, start with your ritual work. Learn very specifically what the words are, not just what you're saying to get through it, but what do they mean? Because and I teach this. I teach all of our EAs, fellow crafts, and master masons their proficiency work. And the reason why I like teaching it is because I don't want to just rush them through to get to the end so they can stand proficiency, but I want them to know the meaning behind all the words that we say and the allegories that go into it, so that this way they can better understand Freemasonry as a whole. So that concludes it there, Brother Michael. And I'd like to see if there's any questions any of the brothers might have at this point.
Yeah, I got one. What is
Yes, sir.
the Wailing Wall? Gary Boyd, what is the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem?
I'm sorry, what was that again, brother?
The Wailing Wall in Jerusalem.
The Wailing Wall.
Yes.
What is-
Yeah. So the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. Yeah. So it's not part of the original King Solomon's temple, because as you know, the original King Solomon's temple was built was destroyed, was built again. I've not been to Jerusalem myself, but the Wailing Wall is not the original King Solomon's temple as depicted in the Bible. Yeah.
Anyone else have any?
Yeah, that's a very common thing, and I'm glad that brother mentioned the Wailing Wall, because I thought the Wailing Wall was part of the original temple itself as depicted in the Bible, and but upon further discovery here, it's not. And one would think that with King Solomon being this very powerful king, that there would be some artifacts denoted to him, like coins, belt buckles from the military, whatever. There is nothing. So as it is, there's currently zero archaeological evidence of the original King Solomon's temple or of King Solomon himself. I just thought that was interesting, but I no longer focus on the literal aspects anymore because it just drives me crazy. So I just look at the allegorical context to everything, and that's what I dig into.
Anyone else have any other questions for our brother? Yes, it was a wonderful presentation. Very worshipful. Did you want to say a word to our speaker?
Tell him thank you very, very much. That was very good.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and jump off and email me the recording. That way we have it.
Yes, no problem there, Brother Michael. And thanks for everyone for having me here. So again, this is a presentation that I've given. Typically, this goes into over an hour, but I hope this helped to at least scratch the surface of things to help you to learn ritual work, right? And to dig more into the esoteric aspects of the craft and to learn what makes Freemasonry different. So,
Awesome.
yes.
All
I'll
right.
go to email that to you, Brother Michael.
All right. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too. Have a great night, brethren.
You too. Bye-bye.